The sea was on fire. Or so it seemed as the evening sun spilled molten gold across the Lagos lagoon. Waves shimmered like silk beneath the yachts anchored lazily offshore, and the towers of Banana Grove rose behind them like something out of a dream glass, chrome and quiet power. From the balcony of her new penthouse, Nyah Kensington stood barefoot, frozen, staring out at the water. Not at the beauty of it, not even at her daughters sketching with crayons on the floor beside her, but at the silence, the kind that came after survival, the kind that filled a space once owned by pain. She turned away from the view, letting the glass doors close behind her, the soft whoosh muffling Ayana's humming. Inside, the apartment still smelled of paint and polish. The marble countertops gleamed. Boxes were stacked in one corner, the last traces of the life she had clawed her way out of. 4 years. 4 years of building in Kira Luxe interiors from the ruins of heartbreak. 4 years of watching the world forget her name while she rebuilt it under a new one. And now she was here, in the penthouse she had paid for herself. No sponsors, no man, no shortcuts. She just lifted the last grocery bag onto the kitchen island when the intercom buzzed. "Ma'am, your delivery has arrived," came the concierge's voice, clipped and professional. Nyah slipped into her sandals, her steps echoing in the private elevator lobby that served only 2 residences. But as the lift opened and she stepped into the corridor, the air shifted. A man stood at the opposite door, back turned, speaking in low tones to the concierge. Tall, sharp suit, one hand in his pocket. The posture hit her like a slap. Nyah's breath caught. She hadn't seen him in 4 years, but there was no forgetting Idris Okoye. She shrank into the curve of the wall, heart pounding like war drums beneath her ribcage. He hadn't seen her. Not yet. The concierge handed him an envelope, and Idris nodded, his deep voice cutting like velvet. Then he stepped into his apartment, and the door closed. Nyah stood frozen, staring at that door like it might open again. Of all the luxury towers in Banana Grove, of all the penthouses in Lagos, Idris lived next door. Her stomach twisted. He didn't know she was here. He didn't know about Ayana, about the child she'd raised in silence. She forced herself to breathe and pushed her own door open. Ayana looked up from her drawing and smiled. "Look, Mommy, I made the sun extra bright today." Nyah blinked back the storm behind her eyes. "It's perfect, baby," she said. But her mind was already calculating escape routes. The walls of this penthouse weren't thick enough to hide from a man like Idris Okoye. The sky broke just after dawn, streaking soft indigo clouds with golden threads as the city stirred awake below. Nyah sat curled on the plush window seat, clutching a steaming cup of hibiscus tea that had long gone cold. She hadn't slept, couldn't. The presence of Idris on the other side of the hallway was no longer just coincidence. It was a threat wrapped in fate. She had kept Ayana hidden for nearly 4 years. Now, in one random twist of real estate, the very man who had shattered her life was once again orbiting it, and he didn't even know. Inside the living room, Ayana was sprawled across the rug, humming as she gave each of her stuffed animals a good morning kiss. The soft light caught the curve of her cheek, the fullness of her lashes. A child of laughter and bold colors, and of secrets. Nyah watched her daughter and swallowed hard. Idris had never seen her, had no clue she even existed. She had once told herself that if she ever stood before him again, she'd feel only rage. But last night, when she'd heard his voice cool, firm, still dangerously commanding, her body had reacted with something worse. Memory. A knock pulled her from her thoughts. She stood, heart already racing. Through the peephole, the concierge waited with a brown leather folder tucked beneath his arm. "Good morning, ma'am. Your updated residence documents and an invitation to next Thursday's Homeowners Association meeting." Nyah opened the door, offering a polite nod. But then, from across the corridor, it came. That voice, Idris. "Have someone send me the interior team from the Azure building. Whoever designed that lobby, find them. Their style is exactly what we need for the Palmetto expansion." Nyah's spine locked. Her grip on the folder faltered. He was talking about her. The Azure lobby was her design. The cascading bronze chandelier, The mahogany and glass fusion check-in desk, the custom AO mask motif in the marble tiling, all hers, all under her new company name, Nkiru Lux Interiors. She closed the door without a sound, the hallway echoing behind her. The folder thudded onto the counter as she reached for her phone. It buzzed before she could even unlock it. "Good morning," came the voice, crisp and corporate. "This is Farouk from the Night Group. Our CEO was quite taken with your Azure project. He'd like to meet with your firm about designing the Palmetto Hotel's new wing." Nyah stared out at the skyline, Lagos stretching endlessly before her, glittering and unknowable. Of all the buildings in the city, he had chosen one touched by her hand. Her breath caught. The walls she had built so carefully were beginning to tremble. The man who once broke her heart didn't know he was standing in her shadow. And worse, he didn't know he had a daughter drawing suns and stars just meters away. By the time the sky burned its way into late afternoon, the penthouse was awash in amber light. Long shadows stretched across the cool marble floors, the hush of wealth and elevation making the place feel more like a museum than a home. Ayana had been restless all day, flitting between her coloring books and her toy kitchen, then settling into her latest obsession, naming the koi fish she'd seen in the garden below. She stood at the balcony now, holding her bunny tight, pointing at the fountains several stories down, naming imaginary creatures swimming beneath the surface. Nyah had resisted going to the garden for days, but today, Ayana's energy had become a tide she could no longer contain. "Just 30 minutes, Nyah had said, zipping her daughter into a light floral jacket. "Then back upstairs." Ayana grinned, already bouncing. The garden was Banana Grove's pride, a tapestry of sculpted hedges, shady palms, winding stone paths, and a koi pond that shimmered like liquid glass. It was meant to be tranquil, a private sanctuary shared only by a handful of residents. But today it felt like walking into a lion's den. They descended in silence, hand in hand. Nyah chose a shaded bench tucked between two tall hibiscus bushes, close enough to watch Ayana, but hidden from sightlines. Her daughter darted toward the pond, giggling, pointing at the swirling flashes of orange and white beneath the water. Nyah allowed herself a breath, a moment. She reached for her tablet, pretending to scroll through fabric swatches, her ears tuned only to Ayana's laughter. But then came footsteps, polished, intentional. Nyah looked up and her heart jolted. Idris, dressed in crisp navy trousers and a linen shirt rolled at the sleeves. His gait was unhurried, his phone pressed to his ear, voice low, purposeful. She shrank further into the hedge, hoping the foliage would mask her presence. Idris paused by the pond, his voice softened. "Careful there, little one. They might splash if you get too close." Ayana turned, eyes lighting up. "They're pretty," she chirped. "I named that one Goldie." Idris chuckled, a sound Nyah hadn't heard in years. "A good name for a golden fish." He crouched beside her, hands resting on his knees, his posture open, gentle. "Do you come here often?" "Sometimes," Ayana said, "but Mommy says not too close to the edge." "Smart Mommy," he replied with a warm smile. Nyah stood abruptly. Her voice was calm, but her pulse was in her throat. "There you are, Ayana. Time to go." Ayana pouted. "But I'm talking to—" "Now, sweetheart," Nyah said more firmly. She didn't look directly at Idris, only offered a brief nod. He gave her the faintest smile, polite, neutral. He didn't recognize her. Not yet, but his eyes lingered, not with familiarity, but curiosity. And that was dangerous enough. Nyah stared at the subject line for the third time that morning, unmoving, while the steam from her untouched mug of lemongrass tea curled upward and disappeared into the quiet. Subject: Palmetto Hotel expansion, initial consultation confirmed. She didn't need to read the rest. She knew the time, the place, the stakes. Thursday morning, Night Group headquarters, Victoria Island. She closed her laptop slowly, the metal warm beneath her fingertips. It wasn't just a meeting, it was the beginning of something too large to control. Idris had unknowingly invited her into his boardroom, into his world, and Nyah wasn't sure if she was walking into an opportunity or a trap. In the next room, Ayana was humming again, stacking blocks and chattering softly to her plush bunny. Nyah watched her for a moment, The way she moved with such assurance. Free, unburdened, a world away from the tangle of adult complications, swirling just beyond the walls of their home. She thought about that moment in the garden, the way Idris had crouched beside her daughter, unaware of the connection pulsing just beneath the surface. It had taken everything Nyah had not to scream, to not pull Ayana away like he was a fire she couldn't let touch her child. And yet, he hadn't been cruel. He had been warm, gentle. She hated how easily he could still surprise her. Her phone rang. She let it vibrate twice before answering. "This is Nyah." "Miss Kensington," said Farouk, the night group assistant. "Just confirming you received the consultation brief. Mr. Okoye has cleared his morning schedule. He's eager to meet the visionary behind the Azure lobby." Nyah forced her voice into something calm. "Yes, I'll be there." After the call ended, she walked to the balcony and pressed a hand to the glass. The city glistened beneath her. She had spent years clawing her way back from the wreckage of her past brick by brick, client by client. The Palmetto contract could redefine her entire firm. But sitting in that room with Idris, she wasn't sure she'd recognize who she'd be on the other side of it. That night, she packed her portfolio with practiced hand sample boards, renderings, scale concepts, each one a shield, each one a distraction. She reminded herself that Idris still didn't know who she was under the Nkirulux banner, that she still had control. But a voice inside her whispered that control was slipping. The walls she had built between her past and present were beginning to crack. And once Idris looked her in the eye across that table, something would change, whether she was ready or not. The night group tower rose like a blade of glass against the hazy morning sky, its mirrored exterior catching the early Lagos light and flinging it back across Victoria Island. Nyah stood at the base of it, portfolio in hand, spine straight, heart pounding. She had faced boardrooms before, faced billionaire clients with impossible deadlines and no creative vision. But nothing in her career had prepared her for this. Stepping into a room where her past sat waiting in a tailored suit, unaware of everything she had built and everything she had hidden. The executive assistant met her in the lobby, all crisp lines and practiced efficiency. "Miss Kensington, welcome. Mr. Okoye will join us shortly. We're on the 42nd floor." The elevator ride felt like a silent ascent into battle. When the doors opened, a wave of polished wood, hushed lighting, and floor-to-ceiling windows greeted her. The boardroom was already prepped. Bottled water, digital projector, contracts waiting like coiled snakes. Nyah took the farthest seat from the head of the table, laying out her portfolio with practiced calm. Farouk and two project leads joined, and small talk filled the air, but she barely heard them. Her pulse was too loud. And then the door opened. Idris walked in with the quiet authority of a man who didn't need to announce himself. Charcoal gray suit, cufflinks that gleamed like secrets. His presence shifted the air. He paused mid-step when his gaze landed on her. For a moment, just one, time stuttered. Recognition flickered in his eyes like a match struck in the dark. "Nyah." Her name left his mouth softly, caught somewhere between surprise and something deeper. She didn't flinch. "Mr. Okoye," she replied, cool as glass, his brow furrowed. "You're the creative lead?" "Director of design, yes. Founder of Nkirulux." Her voice was smooth, but her fingers clenched around the edge of her notes. The room felt quiet. Farouk glanced between them, sensing something unspoken, but not daring to name it. Idris recovered first, motioning for the meeting to proceed. "Well," he said, taking the head seat, "let's see what you brought us." But as she presented her designs, each rendering, each detail crafted with soul, she could feel his gaze studying her. Not just the work, studying her, peeling back layers, trying to reconcile the woman before him with the one he had let walk away. Her designs were flawless, her poise was unshakable. But inside she was bracing, because this wasn't just a presentation, it was the ignition point of everything she had tried to keep buried. The photo went live 2 hours after the meeting. Nyah was still in the car, halfway across the Falamo Bridge, when her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant. "You're trending. Are you okay?" Her stomach sank. She didn't need to ask what it was about. Her fingers trembled as she opened the link, and there it was splashed across the homepage of Lagos Eco Society, the blog that thrived on whispers and scandal. Billionaire Idris Okoye, spotted with mystery woman, business or pleasure. The headline was tacky. The photo, grainy but unmistakable. Nyah, Idris, standing side by side on the curb outside Night Group Tower. Her eyes on him, his mouth mid-sentence. The world had already begun to write its story. She tossed the phone aside, cursing softly under her breath. The entire point of Nkiru Lux's discreet branding had been to keep her face away from cameras, her name off society pages. She wasn't trying to resurrect the Kensington of 4 years ago, the woman Idris had once loved, then left without a backward glance. She had built something new, private, untouchable. But now that privacy was slipping. And worse, Idris had seen the article too, she was sure of it. And if he hadn't yet, someone in his circle would show him. Lagos was many things, but discreet was not one of them. Back at the penthouse, Ayana ran to greet her, arms flung wide, a crayon smudge on her cheek. "Mommy, look! I drew the big fish from the garden! Goldie!" Nyah dropped to her knees, hugging her daughter tightly, inhaling the scent of mango lotion in innocence. For a moment, the world melted away. But when she opened her eyes, she saw the photo again in her mind. Idris beside her. To the unknowing, it looked like something rekindled. Warm, familiar. It was neither. It was a threat. A crack in the foundation of everything she tried to protect. That night, Nyah sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through the photo again, this time on a gossip account with over 1 million followers. Comments poured in like rain on a tin roof. Some curious, others malicious. "That's his ex-wife, isn't it? I thought they ended ugly. Maybe he never really let her go?" She felt the walls closing in, not just around her, but around Ayana. Her daughter had no idea what a camera flash could mean, what an article could ignite. And Idris, if the whispers reached him, he would start asking questions about their past, about her company, and eventually about Ayana. Nyah pressed a palm to her forehead and exhaled slowly. The city was waking up to their story, and she had no idea how to stop it. The garden was quiet that afternoon, the usual soft hum of luxury stilled by an approaching storm. The air held that strange Lagos stillness, pregnant with rain, heavy with electricity. Nyah had chosen this time carefully. Mid-week, mid-afternoon. Idris would be at work. She was sure of it. Ayana skipped ahead of her, holding her plush bunny by the ears, chattering to herself. "Goldie likes the purple fish, but Stripey gets jealous," she said, crouching by the koi pond like she had a secret to tell the fish. Nyah sat under the almond tree, close enough to watch, but far enough to let her daughter feel free. She opened her tablet, pretending to review client emails, but her attention was fractured. Every movement along the cobblestone path pulled her eyes. Every footfall made her shoulders stiffen. She was just beginning to relax when she heard the familiar sound of polished shoes striking stone. Her breath caught. She didn't even need to look up. She felt him. Idris. He came from the eastern path, alone, no phone in hand this time. He was dressed in a steel blue shirt rolled at the forearms, dark trousers, and a watch she remembered buying for him once in Dubai back when they shared dreams instead of distance. Ayana didn't see him at first, but he saw her. He paused, eyes narrowing, something tugging at the edges of his expression. She was crouched at the pond again, leaning dangerously close to the water. "Careful," Idris said gently, his voice carrying. "They'll splash if you fall in." Ayana looked up, smiled wide. "I'm not scared of water," she said proudly, "but Mommy says I can't touch them." He chuckled, crouching beside her again like he had days earlier. Smart Mommy. And then it happened. A pause. His eyes lingered not on her words, but her face. Her eyes. Nyah saw it from the bench, the way his posture stiffened slightly. His gaze shifted from Ayana to the reflection in the pond, then back again. "How old are you?" he asked, tone casual. Casual. 3.5, Ayana said, holding up 3 fingers and a thumb. "My birthday is in May." Something shifted in his eyes. a calculation, a suspicion. Nyah stood quickly. Ayana, she called, more sharply than she intended. Time to go. Her daughter groaned but obeyed. As Nyah gathered her hand and turned to leave, she felt Idris's gaze burning into her back. That night, Idris didn't sleep. He poured himself a drink and stood by his window, watching the penthouse across from his. The little girl haunted his thoughts. Her eyes, her smile, the way she tilted her head when she spoke. The math circled in his brain like a hawk. 3.5, May, 4 years ago. And then her name, Nyah Kensington, landed again, heavier this time. Not the designer, the woman he once loved, the woman who had vanished without a trace. A question lodged itself in his chest, sharp and undeniable. What if that child is mine? The knock came just after Ayana fell asleep. It was sharp, deliberate. Not the hesitant tap of a neighbor borrowing sugar, but the kind of knock that demanded an answer. Nyah froze in the hallway, her hands still clutching Ayana's favorite storybook. The white noise machine in her daughter's room whispered ocean sounds behind her. She already knew who it was. She didn't need a peephole or intuition. Her whole body told her. Idris. Another knock. Louder this time. With a breath that didn't reach her lungs, she opened the door just a crack, and there he was. Sleeves rolled, collar open, tension radiating from every line of his body. His eyes locked onto hers with a kind of quiet fury that made her blood turn cold. We need to talk, he said. Not tonight, she replied, already trying to close the door. He stopped it with his hand, firm but not aggressive. I'm not leaving until I get answers. His voice was low, almost calm, but there was something beneath it, something raw. About her. The little girl I saw in the garden. Her breath hitched. Keep your voice down, she whispered. She's asleep. He stepped back just slightly, enough to let the door open wider. His jaw tightened. She's mine, isn't she? The words shattered something in the silence. Nyah stepped outside, closing the door softly behind her. This isn't the place, she said. Too late for that, he replied. I know what I saw. She looks like me, Nyah. She moves like me. You didn't even change her last name. Her voice broke. I wasn't hiding her to punish you. Then why? He demanded, eyes searching hers. Because I was protecting her from you. She took a step closer, chest rising and falling with every buried year that now surfaced. You ended our marriage without a conversation, without warning. One day we were planning a future, and the next I was handed divorce papers like an invoice. Her voice trembled. I was pregnant, Idris. 1 month. I was going to tell you the night I found those photos. His breath stopped. What photos? He asked, voice hushed now. Johannesburg, the gala. You and that woman. Her hand on your back like she owned you. Her face twisted. You didn't even deny it. Just told me I was overreacting. And then you vanished. You let your lawyer end us. His hands dropped to his sides, helpless. It wasn't like that. Then what was it? She snapped. You didn't fight for me. You didn't ask questions. You just walked away. He looked at her, eyes darker now, not with anger, but regret. I thought I was protecting you. By erasing me, she said. By walking away from a child you didn't even know existed? The air between them thickened. The hallway was silent, save for the hum of the lights overhead. Finally, he spoke. I want to know her. Nyah crossed her arms, trying to hold herself together. It's not that simple. It is for me, he said. I missed her first words, her first steps. I can't get that back, but I'm not missing anything else. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This isn't about what you want. It's about what's best for her. And I don't know if that's you. I'll earn your trust, he said, eyes never leaving hers. Whatever it takes. I'll start from zero, but I'm not walking away again. Not from her, not from you. And somehow those words scared her more than his anger ever could. The sun poured honey gold through the penthouse windows, washing the room in a warmth that felt almost holy. Ayana was on the living room rug, lining up her stuffed animals with perfect symmetry. Everyone, sit up straight. Teacher's coming, she called out in a sing-song voice, not realizing that two adults were watching her from opposite ends of the room. Hearts stretched thin. Nyah stood by the kitchen island, hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. Idris sat on the edge of the sofa, his body still, a notepad in his lap, as he pretended to take attendance with Ayana. She beamed at him, no fear in her eyes. Just curiosity and delight. He knew her now, but she didn't know him, not yet, and the weight of that imbalance sat heavy in Nyah's chest. It had been a week since the hallway confrontation, since truth exploded into the light like a shattered mirror. They had agreed on one thing. Ayana deserved to know gently, lovingly, and without confusion. Nyah crossed the room and knelt beside her daughter. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "can you pause the classroom for a minute?" Ayana tilted her head. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby," Nyah smiled, though it trembled at the corners. We need to talk to you about something important." Ayana's gaze shifted to Idris, who had gone quiet. "Is it about the garden fish again?" she asked. Idris chuckled, but his voice was quiet. "Not this time, sunshine." Nyah looked into her daughter's eyes, the same hazel green eyes she had once begged the universe not to resemble Idris's so clearly. "You know how families can all look different, right?" Ayana nodded, bouncing her bunny on her lap. "Some kids have mommies and daddies. Some have just one. But no matter what, they're always loved." She nodded again. "Well," Nyah said, her throat thick, "there's something we haven't told you." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "This man you've been spending time with, Idris, he's not just a nice neighbor." She glanced at him. He picked it up gently. "Ayana, I'm your daddy." Silence. The word landed soft, but seismic. Ayana stared at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then quietly, "You're my daddy?" Nyah nodded, tears brimming. "Yes, baby, he is." Ayana's lip trembled. "So, you're not going away, right?" Idris swallowed hard. "Never," he said, his voice cracking for the first time. "Not ever again." And in that moment, she stood tiny but fierce and walked straight into his arms. He caught her, wrapping her against his chest like a man gripping salvation. Nyah watched, the emotion rising so swiftly it almost knocked her breath away. And for the first time since the day she left him, she let herself hope not for perfection, not even for repair, but for something better. A new beginning with all three of their names written into it. The rain returned on a Thursday evening, soft at first, brushing the penthouse glass like a whisper. Nyah stood barefoot near the balcony, her arms wrapped in a linen shawl, watching the water fall in delicate sheets. Lagos shimmered in the distance, blurred by mist, its pulse slowed for once. Behind her, the living room was warm. Ayana had fallen asleep on the couch, one arm dangling, bunny tucked beneath her chin. Idris sat nearby, silent, a book open in his lap but unread. His eyes were on Nyah. She didn't turn around immediately. She could feel the weight of his gaze, no longer heavy with questions, but with something quieter, something closer to reverence. When she finally looked at him, she saw it. Not the man who had left her, not the mogul the city whispered about, but someone stripped of armor, someone willing to stay. "I thought I'd never see this," she said softly. "The three of us in one room, with peace." Idris rose, crossing the space between them in slow, deliberate steps. "Neither did I." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell the rain in his shirt, the musk of cologne she used to steal spritzes of when he wasn't looking. "I need to say something," he said, "not because I expect forgiveness, but because I've owed you these words for 4 years." Nyah didn't move. She waited. "I didn't leave you because I stopped loving you," he began, voice rough. "I left because I thought I had to. Johannesburg wasn't what it looked like. That woman, she was threatening the company, the brand, everything I was building. She said she'd expose old deals if I didn't walk away from you. So I did. Not to protect myself, to protect you." He exhaled. "But I see now that I broke you in the process." Nyah closed her eyes, pain rippling across her face, not fresh pain, but old scars touched gently. "You should have trusted me," she whispered. "We could have fought it together." Idris reached for her hand, holding it carefully like something fragile. "I was afraid," he admitted, "of needing you too much, of failing you. I made a coward's choice, but I don't want to be that man anymore. Not for you, not for her." She looked up at him, really looked, and saw a truth, sorrow, and something unshakable. Commitment. Love, not in fireworks or fantasy, but in steadiness, in presence. They didn't kiss immediately. Instead, she rested her head against his chest and let the sound of his heartbeat wrap around her. They stood like that for a long time, the rain softening behind them. Later, when they finally did kiss, it wasn't a collision, it was a return. And when they moved together into her bedroom, it wasn't about passion alone. It was about rebuilding touch by touch, breath by breath. In the morning, Ayana climbed into their bed without knocking. She wedged herself between them, laughing about pancakes and making up stories about the fish in the pond. Idris reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Nyah watched them, her chest full in a way she hadn't known was still possible. This wasn't the life she had once dreamed of. It was better. Because it was real. Because it was chosen again with eyes wide open. The end. What did you think of story? Did the twist surprise you? Were you rooting for Nyah and Idris, or did you think she should have kept her distance? We'd love to hear your take on the characters, the secrets, and that ending. Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your favorite moment, or tell us what you would have done in Nyah's shoes. And if this story moved, you share it with someone who loves a powerful second chance romance set in the heart of Africa.